August the 30th, 2015 is a day that will forever haunt me, as it was the day that I played my worst ever gig as a guitar player in a function band. So I've been doing this for about 7 or 8 years now, and for the most part it's a pretty pleasant experience. I'm playing a lot of weddings, parties, corporate events, and usually events where people are happy, in high spirits, and making nice memories and everything like that. But occasionally, and it is quite rare, we will play a gig which is not that. And this gig is definitely top of the list of my worst experiences that I've had in the whole time that I've been doing this. So today I thought I would revisit this and share it with you guys, just so you can kind of hear a little bit about the darker side of what it's like to be in a function band. So let's get right into it. So as I said, this was August the 30th in 2015, and I think 2015 was the first year that I actually was in this band and I actually started to play these gigs, so I was still quite new to it at the time. And the gig was a wedding. 90% of the gigs that we do in the function stuff is weddings, so this was a wedding. And it was in Leeds city centre in the UK at, I want to say, the Met Hotel or something like that, but a big hotel right in the city centre. If anybody out there is a gigging musician, straight away you know that one of the worst things about doing any gig is that if it's in a city centre, it's going to be a logistical nightmare. Trying to navigate your way through a city you're not familiar with to find the venue, and then when you get there, you find out there's no parking. Both of these things were present immediately. That isn't the main reason why this gig was a nightmare, but obviously it all adds up, doesn't it? Anyway, we get to the venue, we get loaded in, we get parked up. All of that is good. Takes a bit of time, but we get there in the end. And then once we are in, we start setting everything up as we always do. Everything is going well. And the bride and groom came over to us and we had a nice conversation, and we just usually sort of run over timings and things like that just to make sure that we can be set up on time, and if they want us to sort of do anything, we can have a little bit of a conversation beforehand. And I want to say, this sticks in my mind, that the conversation we had with the bride and groom said that we were going to start playing at 8 o'clock, kick off with the first dance straight into our first set, and everything's good to go, which is a pretty standard time for doing this sort of thing. Keep that in mind because that will come back later on. So anyway, other than that, they seem like really nice people and everything's going well. But it's quite aware that whilst we set up, we can't then sound check because all the guests are either eating in a room nearby or there's speeches happening or something. So we can set our equipment up, but we can't sound check, we can't make any noise yet. But that's usually not an issue because sound checks don't take very long. Anyway, we try to finish setting up and then the fire alarm goes off. So it's not just us, it's everybody in the entire building has to be evacuated and go and stand outside, and to be told that basically we can't go in until the fire brigade turn up and give us the thumbs up that we can now enter again. So it's literally leaving all of our equipment to just go outside, which was a bit stressful at the time. But anyway, we stood outside and we were just waiting for what felt like hours. But the fire brigade came up and then they came out, give us a thumbs up, everything was fine. Basically someone was smoking in one of the toilets and it set off the fire alarm and evacuated the whole building. So this is going well so far, isn't it? Anyway, what that meant was that because we'd spent so long outside with everybody else that we weren't able to sound check at all because there was no time, because by the time everybody went back in, I think then they had to sit down for their meal or something like that. I can't quite remember, but there was a reason we couldn't sound check. And I want to say at this point, it was probably about 6 o'clock or something like that. So because now we weren't going to sound check and we weren't playing until 8 o'clock, or so we thought, me and the singer hadn't eaten anything, so we thought we're in a city centre, so let's go and find some food very quickly, and then we can have something to eat and come back and play, and everything will be good. And we spoke to the band members that we were with, and the drummer and the bass player, they didn't want anything to eat, so they were going to stay at the venue. And we said, cool, that's great. Well, we're pretty hungry, so we're going to go and find somewhere. So we said, right, we're just going to nip to Nando's. It's 5 minutes away. We'll be very quick, and then we'll be back in no time. All great, thumbs up from everybody. So we head off to Nando's, everything's all good. We get there, we order our food, and the thing about Nando's, which is pretty good, so anybody who might not know this, is that when you order your food at Nando's, you pay as you order it. So it's not like you have your meal and then you pay at the end. You pay at the beginning, which I quite like because that means that once you've finished your food, you can just leave. Anyway, we order our food and then we sit down to wait for it. Nando's is usually quite a quick restaurant. When you order your food, it doesn't usually take that long for it to turn up. So we were quite aware that we weren't going to be that long. We'd just get there, we'd eat our food, and then we'd head back to the gig in no time. So as soon as we sit down, my singer's phone rang, and it was the other guys in the band saying that we need to get back to the gig immediately because they are kicking off. So obviously at first we thought this was a wind-up. We thought they were just taking the mick whilst we were out going getting food, and they were going to make us rush all the way back to the gig just to say, no, we were just joking. But it quickly became evident that that wasn't the case, because whilst they were on the phone to us, apparently the bride and the groom and maybe some other people as well were really having a go at them because we weren't there. So as people were shouting at them, they were shouting at us to get back to the gig. So we rushed over to the till at Nando's and asked if we could have our food to go, if we could take it out rather than it arrive on a plate, because it hadn't even turned up yet. So luckily our food was pretty much ready and they put it in bags for us, and we just launched ourselves back to the gig. And I remember running through Leeds city centre with my Nando's, me and the singer. We get back to the gig to be met by our bandmates, who basically said, "We're playing right now," which was quite surprising because we'd spoke to the bride and groom already, who said that we were going to play a lot later, which is why we thought we had enough time to do this. But anyway, that wasn't the case. So we literally just had to chuck our food down and then just get straight on stage and start playing the first dance, straight into the full 1 hour first set. I was bursting for the loo at this point as well, and it was quite evident that I wasn't going to get to go, so I had to basically wait a full hour before I could even not only have my food but go to the toilet as well. No one else in the band really spoke to each other, but it was clear that people were not happy. You could cut the tension with a knife, and yeah, it was quite an uncomfortable atmosphere. Having to play a full hour of music in a band which is, you know, relying on a lot of communication, eye contact and stuff like that with people who don't want to look at each other at this moment in time because everyone's really annoyed for whatever reason. It was really, really bizarre. And then obviously the bride and groom, they'd been annoyed, so they were probably a little bit annoyed with us as the band. And you could just feel it. There was just atmospheres everywhere, left, right and center. So it was a very uncomfortable place to be. It turns out that the photographer for the wedding wanted to leave early, so he basically told the bride and groom, "You need to bring your first dance earlier if you want pictures of it." So obviously they went, "Okay, well, we'll tell the band then, let's start earlier." But at this point, we'd already left to go and get some food and get something to eat. So yeah, it turns out that the entire reason that they changed their mind and brought everything earlier was because of the photographer who didn't want to stay later. So that was a little bit irritating. So after the first set, we all went outside as a band, and obviously me and the singer, we still hadn't had our food yet, so we wanted to just eat. We were really hungry, and our food had just been sat in the car for the past hour going cold, so we went straight to go and get our food. But we thought whilst we were outside, me and the band, we'd all have a chance to talk and hopefully clear the air a little bit and just sort of, you know, try and bring the night back to having some fun as opposed to people being annoyed at each other and stuff like that. But I feel like there was still this atmosphere of, you know, a little bit of blame being pointed and things like that. And if I'm being completely honest, I can't blame the drummer and the bass player for being annoyed because they're the ones who got shouted at for me and the singer being away because they were the only ones there. I'm sure if me and the singer were there, they would have shouted at us as well, but because we weren't there, they took it out on the other guys who then were understandably annoyed at me and the singer. But I'm pretty sure people said what they needed to say within the band and stuff like that, and then we went and did the second set. I don't have any memories of the second set. I think it was probably a little bit better than the first because we'd cleared the air a little bit and stuff like that. And then after the second set, normally we only play 2 sets, but I think the band, we kind of decided, let's play a third set as a gesture of, you know, good faith and, you know, apologizing to the bride and groom for the whole earlier mishaps and things like that. So we played another hour for free, because normally if we play an extra bit of music, we'll charge. It's like an extra fee on top of, you know, what they've already paid. So all in all, that night we had played for 3 hours. 2 of them were the paid hours and then a completely free extra 1 hour just to try and, you know, make the bride and groom a little bit happier if we'd already annoyed them, as a bit of an apology, that sort of thing. And even after all that, I don't really remember much communication with the bride and groom after that for the rest of the night as we were packing down and leaving or anything like that. But anyway, that was the gig. We'd finished up and then obviously we'd all kind of left and everybody was a little bit annoyed and kind of just fed up, and having not really enjoyed the whole night, it's been quite stressful and stuff like that. Normally after a gig as well, within a couple of weeks, we normally get some feedback from the client, and we were all worried because we didn't want a negative review to come back because obviously that negatively impacts on the band. If we get negative feedback, you know, it might prevent us getting some bookings in future and things like that. Anyway, we get a review a few weeks later, and to our amazement, the review is positive. I don't even think there was any mention of what actually happened in the night. It was just, the band were great, had a great night, that sort of thing. So it was just pretty confusing to get this really good review when on the night tensions were so high, people were screaming at each other and there was a lot of shouting going and a lot of negativity, to then get this really positive review. It just, to this day, doesn't make sense. But one of the main takeaways from this is that it was just a massive learning curve, and it kind of changed how we operated as a band from there onwards, which was that if we had a gig we stayed at the gig the whole time, and none of us left the gig unless it was for a very good reason, and unless we had absolute confirmation and, you know, had the okay from the clients and stuff like that, that they knew that we were going to leave and that we were going to come back. Other than that, we get to a gig and we stay there until the end. So yeah, the worst thing about it wasn't even like I had any equipment malfunctions, or I messed up any songs, or I forgot how to play things, or anything like that. It was literally just due to the tensions in the building, from the bride and groom to the band to each other and things like that. So it was really, really uncomfortable and unenjoyable. But yeah, that's never happened since, and I hope it never happens again. Anyway, I just thought I would share that today. I wanted to make this video, so for what it's worth, if you enjoyed this little story, then leave this video a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. If you've got any questions or anything like that, chuck them down below as well. If you're new to my channel, then please don't forget to subscribe. I make lots of guitar and music related content, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. So take care.